Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, very
All
well.
right, we are ready to kick off and the last show of the year. Anyway, welcome. This is Georgia Allen, GA for Justice, and I'm always excited to come to you every Thursday at 12 o'clock noon. And I bring you greetings today. And as always, we want to thank Henderson Vaughn, aka the Dream Maker, aka Captain 85, the place where I used to go to and have a good time in the
Yes.
evenings.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
so appreciative that he has opened up the airwaves to bring our listening audience a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, and also a conversation for transformation. And if you know anything about me, you know I love quotes. And I'm going to quote Angela Davis again.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
no longer accepting things I cannot change. I am changing the things that I cannot accept. So as we come up to the end of the year and we're talking about Kwanzaa and we are sharing our thoughts with regards to Kwanzaa, most of the time we wait every year to celebrate Kwanzaa. But when you start reading about Kwanzaa really wants you to do things all year long. And then at the end of the year, as you celebrate collectively, you need to check off what did you do? What did you do under the seven principles that made life better for our family, our children, made life better for our community, made life better for society? Did we change anything in the schoolhouse? Did we change anything in healthcare? Did we change anything anywhere? And so today, of course, is the fourth day of Kwanzaa. So I'm going to kick off and talk about the fourth day, and then I'm going to go back and talk about the first through the third, and then the fifth through the 6 days of Kwanzaa. And I want to do that because I don't want people to not remember what day it is. And today, of course, is the fourth principle of Kwanzaa, which is Ujamaa, or cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, our shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. It's talking about ownership. And this is important because four of the essentials for any strong community, any strong people, any strong group is everyone should have their own bank. They should have their own schools so they can educate their own children. They should have their own grocery stores so they can make sure that their community is getting the right nutrition. And they should all have their own hospitals. And that's important because we need the better health care. Right now, we're relying on others to provide us health care. Relying on others to provide us with banks and loans and things of that nature. But if we follow the principle of Ujamaa, cooperative economics, all of those things are economically sound. Good schools and education, one of the places that the government spends more money than any place else other than military is
Hello.
schools. Let's get real now. They spend a lot of their money in one, militarism, and the other thing is in education. Now, it's not necessarily in our schools where our children go, but they are spending tons and tons of money in building the best schools in certain communities, in certain neighborhoods. But if we did what cooperative economics said for us to do, and if we work on those things all year long so that we have a report card that we can give to each other in our community, within our families, guess what? We can have a much better outcome. So, again, four essentials for any community is your own bank so that you can get loans, get them at a better rate, so that you can get loans so that you can buy your home, so you can get loans to buy your vehicles, so that you can get loans for other reasons, such as starting your own business. And what's the point of the job? The job should be a temporary resource for income that you put aside so that you can do what? Start a business. Now, that doesn't mean you quit your job immediately. It just simply means is use your tools and use them properly for cooperative economics. So that if you're working at a job and you have friends that are working at that same place, you need to have a conversation about what your dreams and goals and aspirations are. And let's see if we can start putting money to the side. And then we then began businesses and we roll out of these companies, and now we're supporting our own businesses. And so one starts a business and you support that, and then they in turn come back and support you as you start your own business. And then the cycle continues. So cooperative economics, Ujamaa, we need to rethink how we've been looking at our economics. Also, as we talk about Kwanzaa, and we talk about the fact that it has principles, and we talk about the celebration, let's not get swayed with allowing other people to do what they've been doing for decades and centuries, and that is exploitation of the things that we come up with ourselves. We came up with Kwanzaa as a mechanism to begin to educate our people with regards to their history, as a mechanism to be able to provide our young people with resources that they need to empower them to be stronger, to build better, and to make sure that they don't keep making the same mistakes that we made. And the thing that sometimes traps us is when we decide that we're going to create a cultural holiday, such as Juneteenth. And then all of a sudden, the same old institutions that have taken our patents, that have taken the things that we've discovered and added their name to it, they come along and they decide that they're going to control Juneteenth and they're going to control Kwanzaa. And Kwanzaa teaches us to buy books at that time, to read together as a family. But it's very important that when we buy these materials, that we check and see who wrote them. Because guess what? These guys are good at what they do.
Hello.
They are very good at what they do. So as we're trying to build economics, we got to avoid exploitation, because they will exploit us on every single solitary turn. So when I come to you today about Kwanzaa, a cultural celebration, and the reason why we need to do this, we also need to remind ourselves is the importance of give everything you have, and then tomorrow give just a little bit more. Okay, so as we're working on Kwanzaa and as we're educating our people, give everything you got. And then when you wake up tomorrow, give just a little bit more. Because when we start to do that on a regular basis, we are going to see a different outcome. And so I'm very excited about the end of the year. I'm excited not to wish the end of the year goodbye, but to recognize the importance of things that we are responsible for doing in terms of the 7 principles. And it's not 1 week event, it is an all year event. Every month we should be looking at what have we done? What is it that we're doing to bring about a significant change based upon the principles of Kwanzaa? So on Monday, which was the first day of Kwanzaa this year, December the 26th, was Umoja, or unity. And that is to strive for and maintain unity in the family, the community, the nation, and the race. And why this is so important is because there's all types of things that are out there that are keeping us confused, keeping us off balance. Disinformation that's causing us to stray away from our foundation, from our principles, from our standards. So unity helps us to communicate with each other. Unity allows us to educate one another so that when one sees a distraction or disinformation, it's our responsibility in order to keep our family intact, in order to keep our community intact, is to share that information with one another so that we can avoid that and not get trapped in the mess. So unity, umoja, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, keeping ourselves connected with one another is critically important. It is extremely important that we unify, that we hold each other up, that we are there for one another so that we don't run into a situation where someone feels like they need to commit suicide. Unity is that balance, that standard, that principle that keeps us intact. The second day of Kwanzaa, of course, was Kuji Chagalia, or self-determination. To define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. And absolutely do not allow others to define us or speak for us. Why is that so important? Because when we go out and speak for ourselves and we go before city council, we go before school board, we go before the state legislature, and we're speaking for ourselves, we're leveraging the power, the God-given power that we have to change things in our community. And why is that so important? We saw it in Virginia Beach. The lawsuit to sue the city of Virginia Beach for an illegal voting system, standing up for ourselves, fighting for justice, allowed us to be able to see at the end of the year that the work that we done, we received an outcome. The work of fighting injustices allowed us to see a different outcome. So when the fight against the city of Virginia Beach for voting rights violation went to the court and the court ruled in the favor of the plaintiffs, that changed how we did elections in the city of Virginia Beach. So you can put a check mark there when you're looking at what did you do this year to bring about a change? Were you self-determined? Did you have self-determination to fight against a bad system? And if you did, what was the outcome? In our case, the outcome was the judge ruled in the favor of the plaintiffs. So Kuji Chagalia says somebody was determined to end a system that was unfavorable to our community. And when that happens, and when you stay the course, as Angela said, I'm no longer accepting things I cannot change. I am changing the things that I cannot accept. Hello. So what happened? Couldn't accept an illegal election system. Could not accept Voting Rights Act violation. Could not accept an election that made us run in an entire city and then made us live in a district. Could not accept that. And so what we see is through self-determination, we change a system that was not beneficial to our community, which ultimately ended up in us electing 3 new Black people for city council in the city of Virginia Beach.
All right.
Hello. And then in January, we will have 4 elected Black people on city council for the first time in the history of Virginia Beach. Not appointed, not selected, but elected. Hello, Jennifer. We are excited because we are blessed when we fight, when we begin to say we're going to change things that we cannot accept, real change happens. So let's move on down to the next principle, Ujaima. And Ujaima is collective work and responsibility. to build and maintain our community together and make our community's problems our problems and solve them together. Okay? That's unity and that's being united. When we decide that we're going to work together and we're not going to decide that we're going to try to be a little bit better than this other person over here or think ourselves better than this person here because maybe I came out of a different community or I was fortunate enough to go out and make a lot of money and all of a sudden I don't feel like I need that community anymore. I don't feel as if I need to be concerned about that community anymore because I feel like I'm just a little bit better than they are. Well, I've watched over the years, I've been involved in civil rights many, many moons. And let me share something with you. That is not workable. It is a failure. You know why we know? Because we've seen people do that before. And at the end of the day, that doesn't work. But when we collectively work together, when we build our community together, when we recognize that our community's problems are our problems and we solve them together, we come out a lot better. So we have an opportunity with the changes that have taken place is to make sure that this new council funnel money into our community the way that it should be. Now, I saw something recently with regards to our outgoing city council congresswoman, where she's brought $15.5 million to Virginia Beach. As she's going out the door, she's bringing money back into our community, back into our districts. Well, guess what? Our job is to make sure that we change the things we can't accept. So they've been giving money away basically to these various groups, organizations, also almost individuals, but they have a business name attached to it. So now what we have to do is say, hold on one second. That $15 million, we are at least 15 to 20% of the population. So 20% of that should be coming directly to our community.
3.5.
Hello. Okay. Yeah. And so when we work together and when we make and maintain our community and we keep them together and we make sure that those problems that happen over in one area, that we take responsibility for it and we recognize that as being our problem, we can clean up some of these messes that have been laid out here for us. Now, you want to share with us something, Henderson? Because I always like to,
Yeah, because once they get the bag, they go on retreats, and the bag is gone when you come back. Absolutely. And our community ain't getting it.
Right.
But if it is, it's very little.
And we got to make sure that since they made the announcement that 15.5, I think it was 15.5 mil, guess what? We need our portion of that 15.5 mil, and we need our own businesses redoing our neighborhoods and cleaning up our neighborhoods. But that money needs to come in so that these companies that are owned by us can hire our children and put them to work and then continue this process of building and growing and developing so that we have a better outcome. Now, I talked about Ujamaa at the beginning. So I'm going to go to number 5 and talk about Nia purpose. To make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. That's what that $15.5 million is about, okay? If we want our people to get to their traditional greatness, the things that have made them able to build Washington, D.C. without even so much as a blueprint, because the gentleman that laid out Washington, D.C., remembered the blueprint in his mind. And so he was able to tell them what to do in order to build it. Okay. That's power. That's traditional greatness. That is what greatness looks like, is when you are so brilliant that you don't even need the blueprint to be in front of you. You can just memorize it. You can just know it in your mind and then have them lay it out. Have the architect and designers, okay, this is what you need to do. So that the Washington, D.C. looks the way it does because of our traditional greatness.
Yeah.
Because of our traditional greatness. So near is purpose. That gentleman had a purpose. He was like, okay, I have looked at this paper for a long time. And then out of my mind, I was able to just redo everything that was on that paper because my mind is so brilliant. I was able to tell them, this is what you need to do. This is how you make DuPont circle. This is how you do the various circles, and then how they come out to go down Pennsylvania Avenue, to go down New Hampshire, to go to the White House.
Yeah.
But from my memorization skills, they were so strong. Mm-hmm. I'm able to tell you what you need to know in order to do the things that have to be done in order to draw this plan out.
Yeah.
In reality.
He did that because he looked at the stars. The streaks are lined up in Washington, D.C. by the stars. He looked at and laid it out by mapping the stars in the sky. Absolutely. That's the only thing he used, so it's crazy.
It is amazing. It is so amazing. And then on December the 31st is Kwanzaa, or creativity. To do always as much as we can to leave our community more beautiful and more beneficial than we inherited it. Again, what are we doing? What have we done? What is it that we've done all year to make positive changes in our communities, to make positive changes in our schools, to make positive changes in our family, our government, and our society? What have we done? So creativity is to do as much as we can to leave our families, our communities, our society more beautiful and more beneficial than we inherited it. So each and every year, we should be following these principles all year long. We should be looking at what is going on in my city. What's happening over here? Where are some things that I can work to bring about a change? And so when I looked at that, leaving our community better, I thought about our school system, and I thought about the new people that are about to go on school board. And what came to mind is we need to have some people to serve on that curriculum committee for the City of Virginia Beach School Board, because we need to know what books they're putting in our children's hands. And whether we still have children in school or not, whether we're retired educators, or whether we're working in corporate America, or whether we've done our due diligence, we retired from the military, or we retired from corporate America, or wherever it may be, we should be concerned about the next generation. And you say, well, Georgia, why should we be concerned? Because those are the people that's going to make laws for what happens to you for the remainder of your life.
Hello.
They are the people who are going to make decisions about you. And so if they are not properly educated, those decisions may not be very favorable to you and your family and what you care about. So again, we want to make sure that we leave our community more beautiful and more beneficial than what we inherited. So Kwanzaa is critically important. Kwanzaa is extremely important because for the most part, what we talk about all the time is a job. And I can remember years ago, as most people have at one time or another, I decided to do Amway. I'm just going to get rich and I'm going to do Amway. I'm going to go out and I'm going to sell my detergent. And one of the things they used to always have is different little sayings. And they said, J-O-B, it's a Jack A of the boss. Okay. So job may not be the thing that you want to keep permanently, but I do encourage you to get a job temporarily so that ultimately you put away enough money. Don't spend all the money that you get in a job. A job is simply there for a temporary purpose in order for you to build your real purpose, in order for you to succeed in your real purpose in life. The other thing about a job is it has retirement plans. So one of the things I always recommend to people is put as much money in that retirement plan as you can and find out how long you must work there before you're 100% invested. Some places it's 5 years. Some places it's 7 years. So if you can be 100% invested in 5 years, work your butt off for 5 years and put as much money away as you can. Put as much money away in the retirement plan. Put as much money away in savings and live less on less for a temporary period of time. Why is that important? Because when you leave that job, you can roll that retirement plan into a private account that you can monitor and check on and build it and build it and build it some more. But it's not for you to spend. And you say, well, why? Because what happens if you should get sick and ultimately have to go into an early retirement system? You want to make sure that you have something for now and something for later. Okay, you want to make sure. And so this is what Kwanzaa teaches us. It really teaches us a structure, a process, so that when we get older, as time goes on, we're always building toward that ultimate goal. And that is security, and that is independence, and that is ownership. I like as and Henderson is used to me. I make up terms all the time. I call it woo. We own ourselves. WOO.
Hello.
We own ourselves.
Say it for the people in the back too.
Woo. We own ourselves. Okay. Yeah. And so if we follow principles of Kwanzaa, if we begin to go back to this community foundation, if we began to go back to our family foundation, if we began to go back to our faith foundation, if we began to go back and we work as a united community, we're going to have a very different outcome. Because anytime people could come out of enslavement and go all the way from the South, all the way to Oklahoma, and build everything they built, that could only happen because they maintain their traditions, they maintain their standards, they maintain their principles, and more importantly, they became accountable to one another. And so here's the doctor over here, here's the dentist over here, here's the lawyer over here, here's the banker over here, here's the guy who owns the airplane, here's the guy who owns the airport. And so they were able to have their own private jets when most of us and many of us can't even have our own car.
Hello.
Something is wrong with this picture, but if we follow the principles of Kwanzaa, we can get back to that place of unity, that place that says to us that when we work together, when we have collective work and responsibility, when we have that creativity, when we have that purpose, when we have that unity, when we have that self-determination, and we use those things day by day, building on those things, we're going to have a very different outcome. The seventh principle is imani, or faith, and that is to believe with all of our hearts in our people and in the righteousness and victory of our struggle. We may have had to struggle, but boy, boy, were we victorious. We hear all the time, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. A little bit hard when we didn't have boots or straps, okay?
Hello.
A little bit hard. But guess what? We did it again and again and again. Wilmington, North Carolina, another prime example. They were electing Black people to serve in the state government, serve in Congress. And guess what? The folks who had everything got angry and shot people dead in the state legislature. Now, they were supposed to be brilliant, so smart, knew everything, but couldn't understand why someone who we tried to prevent them from reading, tried to prevent them from writing, tried to prevent them from having knowledge, refused to allow them to have books. But their intelligence was so far beyond these folk who were mean and evil and were willing to do all type of vicious harm to our forefathers. They got so angry because these people were so intelligent that they understood numbers. Hello. And so what did they do? They voted each other into office. And if it had continued the way that it was going, they would have controlled the state legislators throughout the entire South. They would have controlled Congress and the Senate. Black people, I shouldn't say they, Black people would have controlled state legislatures throughout the South. They would have controlled governor races. They would have controlled congressional races, Senate races, and probably the presidency of the United States. But what happened? Evil took over and said, no, they can't do that. They can't serve. They can't make rules and regulations. So what do? They come up with the KKK. They come up with black codes. They come up with all these various things. He said, well, Georgia, what does that have to do with Kwanzaa? Well, what it has to do with is the fact that Kwanzaa is telling us to set a foundation. The fact that Kwanzaa is telling us to follow some principles in writing. They gave us a playbook. If we follow the playbook and we don't just do our little celebration, put on our African attire and go to events for 7 days, but we take the playbook and we follow it all year long, and we make our moves, and we elect people to office. We elect people who will represent our interests, our concerns. And if they don't, guess what? We can vote them out of office and replace them. And we must learn how to use our power. We must learn how to leverage our power. We must learn how to wield the power that we have. And so, again, what it has to do with? It has to do with the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, umoja, unity, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, the community, the nation, and the race. Kujichagulia, self-determination. We must be determined, without a doubt, no ifs, ands, or buts. We must be determined to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Stop the foolishness, people. Stop letting others speak for you. Speak for yourself. Go before school board, city council, and tell them what you want. And push and push and leverage and wield, hold on to your power and move it in the direction that it needs to go in the best interest of your children, in the best interest of your family, in the best interest of your community, in your neighborhood. Wield the power. Wield the power. Next, Ujama. I'm sorry, Ujana. Collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together and make our community's problems our problems and solve them together. If we have a problem with the curriculum in the school system of Virginia Beach or Hampton or Norfolk, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, guess what? That's all of our problem. Whether we're still working, not working, whether we have kids in the school or not, whether we have grandkids in the school or not, it is all of our problems. And we need to act like it. We need to come before school board and go before city council and let them know that we ain't going to take it anymore. Again, we have a blueprint. We have a playbook. The 7 principles of Kwanzaa give us the playbook of moving things in a direction that is in our best interests. Ujama. Ujama. Cooperative economics. To build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. This business or individualism, let me do it alone, it's not working. It's not working. Take a look at how long we've been running around here saying I can do bad by myself. Guess what? You prove your point, you can. And you are.
Hello.
You are. You're doing bad by yourself.
Yeah.
Because the money is running out. Yeah, you had a good job for a little while, but guess what? Layoffs come, all types of things happen. There's right side, all these different things that corporations did during the good times when they had plenty of money to pay your salary. They said, oh, wait a minute. If I get rid of you, I can increase my profit margin.
Hello.
So guess what? Since you didn't own the business, at any point in time, you could lose your job.
Okay, I confess they did. They did it.
So all these people that want to sit here and talk about they can do bad by themselves, guess what? You prove your point, you can, and guess what?
Yeah.
You're now by yourself, and guess what? You're doing bad, and guess what?
Hey.
The things that you thought you would have, you don't, because you didn't realize how important it was to have a partner, how important it was to be a group, how important it was to be a community, how important it was to be a family, and how important it was for you to work together. Cooperative economics, ownership, building together, cooperative economics. We want those businesses to make a profit so that we can all profit and win together. And again, four essentials of any community is to have a grocery store so we can provide the food, the quality of food that our community needs. Next, school. So we provide the education that our children need and not the foolishness and the lies and the misrepresentation and disinformation about who we are, describing who we are. So we need to make sure that we have our own school systems. Next, hospitals. Even Serena Williams, with all of her money, had to advocate for herself when she was having her child. So the hospital, even though they knew she was a multi-millionaire, didn't give a care about that. They only looked at the fact that she didn't look, her melon was too dark for them, the melanin. Okay?
No.
So keep in mind, there's not enough money in the world that a Black person can have that will allow the institutions and the majority community to feel that they should have a certain amount of respect for a person who has melanated skin. So don't get it twisted. Do not get it twisted. With all the money that I want to say it was Norm Nixon's wife, with all the money that Oprah Winfrey had, she went to a store overseas and they turned their nose up like, why are you in this store?
Hello.
And why are you looking at this pricey item? Where are you going to get the money to purchase it? So you can't have enough money. You cannot be powerful enough, or an actor, or athlete, or whatever. That does not matter. You must own your own stuff. So woo again, we own ourselves. It is important. It is critically important that we own ourselves, that we own the stuff in our community. We own our own businesses, so that never again should we have to sit there and be disrespected when we walk into any store, no matter how expensive it is. And finally, that fourth item that we needed, I said the grocery store, the hospital, the schools, the bank. We must have our own lending institutions. It is critically important that we have our own lending institutions, because we buy houses just like anybody else. We buy vehicles like anybody else. We start businesses just like anybody else. And we need to know that there are places that we can go to get a loan and favorable interest rates, and not these outrageous 28, 38% interest rates. And same thing when it comes to our children's education. Most of our children are still in debt because the interest on the indebtedness has become so high that it's virtually impossible to buy your way out of it unless you happen to win the $400 million lottery.
What? Okay? Who told you? Who told you I was going to do that?
So Kwanzaa principles are relevant now and every single year. So I want to ask us, wait a minute, let me finish up the Kwanzaa principles. Nia, purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Number 6, Kaumba, creativity, to do always as much as we can to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. Because see, we're inheriting whatever we have, believe it or not, even in cases where our family didn't have a whole lot, we are generally inheriting something. Even if it's a small insurance policy, for the most part, we are inheriting something when our families leave. Or even while our many families are still here and we're born into this society, we are inheriting from our family members. And then finally, Imani, faith, to believe with all of our hearts in our people and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. So those are the 7 principles. Those are standards that we can live by, because the so-called standards or principles that we're supposed to have in our Constitution, guidelines in our policing, guidelines in our military, and in our cities and states, those guidelines change all the time. They're not principled to the point where everybody lives by the same guidelines. It doesn't happen. But these principles, they're permanent. They're standards. They're standards that don't waver. Okay? They don't waver. So, my question to this community who's listening today, what do you plan to do in 2023 to promote and create a better outcome than you had in 2022? Because we need to use these principles and we need to talk to one another. If you're living in a city and you're saying, well, wow, Virginia Beach was able to sue their city, they were able to change their elections, and we still got some craziness going on in our city.
Hello.
What should we do? Okay. First and foremost, you need to sit down and talk about where your city is right now and identify where you or a group of you can come together and look at what has happened over the years and see if there's certain patterns that have taken place. So you can begin to identify how these patterns and how the things that are happening are not beneficial to you, to your family, as you are paying taxes. Because what's taking place is when your voting rights are violated, you're basically being taxed without representation. Okay. And so that's why making decisions and working together and identifying the problems and issues, and then identifying a solution, a way to solve these problems and issues. The other thing that I wanted to ask my listening audience today, who are we working with in the community, in our family, in our society, in the schools, to ensure that our children are stronger and more self-assured to meet the battles and to ultimately win this war? Although I hate using the word war, we're basically in a war. And as Black people, we have always been at war, trying to fight through, get over, knock down barriers, build infrastructure, and remove obstacles. Those things still taking place. So when you look at where you are right now, because I want to go out more or less with the knowledge and understanding of what am I going to do in January? What am I going to do in February? What am I going to do in March, April, May, June, July? What am I going to do in August, September, and October? And what am I going to do in November and December? So I want you guys, when you're listening to the program today, Kwanzaa, I want you guys to sit down first with your family, then maybe with your faith community or maybe with your neighbors, but sit down and I want you to put in writing what you intend to do to bring about a serious change in wherever you are to have a different outcome. And then I want you to look at those principles of Kwanzaa and share how the principle of Kwanzaa can relate to what it is you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to accomplish, and how you're going to make it happen. Are you going to give yourself a timeline? Because if you don't have a timeline, you just have wishful thinking. If you really truly want results, you need to identify the problem, and then you have to have a timeline to solve it, to resolve these issues. And you have to look at where do you go to begin to resolve some of these issues. Where is it that you're going to go? Who are you going to speak with to resolve some of these issues? Who's going to be your partners? Who's going to be that person that is self-determined. When you're looking in the community for the team that you're going to need, who's that innovator that's in my community that can help me put together the type of software that I need? Who can write that program? Who can do the coding? Who's that person? Who's the person that can take a software that's already out here and make that software do things that we didn't even know it could do because of the intelligence of our young people, the intelligence of those who are in our community? When we're looking at the creativity of our community, who are those people? Who are those innovators that can come up with a new way of doing things? Who are the people who will go out and work as a team and say, this is what we're going to do? We're going to city council every time they have a meeting. And we have this team, and this team is looking at every agenda that they have. They're looking at every item on that agenda. They know that council front, back, up, down, inside, out. And guess what? They now know every city council member that's sitting there. And they know how to apply the pressure to the city council members to get the outcome that they want. Who do we have who is willing to go to school board meetings every time they have a school board meeting? Who do we have in our community who's willing to turn in their resume so that they can serve on these boards and commissions? Who do we have who's willing to turn in their resume to the school board so they can serve on the school's committees, whether it's the curriculum committee or any of the other committees that they have? But what we need to make sure is that we have our posse, and our posse is united. Our posse is loyal. We can count on them. And if they're not able to be there, they've already made the phone call to have their replacement to come in their stead. And they make it work like a fine-tuned machine. And they do this over and over and over and over again until it is a habit. This is critical, folks. This is critical. What we're doing with Kwanzaa at the end of this year is pushing our people to take Kwanzaa seriously, use the principles, implement the principles so that we can have a much better outcome. Well, guess what? It is coming to the end of the show today. I'm so excited to have had the time to conversate with you. I trust and hope that you were able to get some great information from our conversation today. And sometimes I just like to be the person talking and not necessarily having a guest, because there are things that I want to put out there to my community because I love my community. One of the things, if you don't know me, I have been fighting in the city of Virginia Beach for over 3 decades. 3 decades trying to turn some of this foolishness around. Now, I know there are people that are coming now behind me, and they see some of the things that have taken place, and they're seeing an opportunity to go and get at the front of the line. And I want to say to everybody, and it's regardless of your background, who you are, this is work. This is work. But at the end of the day, the work should make all of us better, not just one or two of us better. So if you feel like you want to try to take advantage of what has taken place this last year, because I have receipts. Am I right? Am I right, Henderson? I have receipts of the work that has been done to make changes in this community, in the city of Virginia Beach. Okay. I have receipts for all of those things that we have been able to do. Many of us, some of us, sometimes one or two of us have been able to do. And I would hate to see us make the same mistake again because someone decided to jump at the front of the line and not bother to bring everybody to the table. So, with that being said, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you today Kwanzaa, the 7 principles, live by them, and don't just celebrate Kwanzaa, live Kwanzaa, live economic empowerment, cooperative economics, live your purpose, live your faith and creativity, live self determination, live collective work and responsibility, and live unity, live united. Because if we keep doing things by ourselves, we will be by ourselves. And when we say, I can do bad all by myself, guess what? You did it and you were right.
And that's
So with
one
that
thing.
said, I close out with woo. We own ourselves. Let's do it. Let's make Kwanzaa part of our everyday life. January 1, 2023. And let's not leave others behind in getting it done. Thank you. Look forward to you joining us next week, next Thursday, the same time. This is Georgia Allen with GA for Justice, always an activist.
No doubt about it. Thank you so much, Georgia, and happy new year to you and the closing of 2022. Bigger and better things are coming, and expanding things in areas so that our community can have a voice and know what's going on, what is affecting their kids in the school system, and been pushed under the rug. So I applaud you for the work and the service that you have done for over the 30 years. And some of the things, you don't discuss or even let people know that some of the changes was because of you. But that's another day and another story. But once again, thanks on behalf of WVDM and the best of the 757 Community Talk Show. And don't forget, we'll be back next Thursday for GA for Justice with your host, the one and only former NAACP president, Ms. Georgia Allen. And have a prosperous new year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Bye.